Hey, captive hearts. Get ready for a romance where fate and danger trap two mates together with nowhere to run. When Alpha Enforcer Kade Blackthorn is ordered to guard the one woman who makes his wolf go feral, the headstrong pack healer who's witnessed a murder, he knows 2 weeks in a remote safehouse will be hell. She hates authority. He lives by it. The mate bond between them? She's fighting it with everything she has. But with a traitor hunting her and a blizzard sealing them inside, they can't escape each other, or the undeniable pull that's growing stronger every second they're forced to share the same air, the same space, the same burning need. Chapter 1. The safehouse door slammed shut with the finality of a prison cell. Kade Blackthorn dropped the duffel bags inside the cramped cabin and immediately regretted accepting this assignment. The space was smaller than he'd anticipated. One main room serving as kitchen and living area, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, and a single bedroom visible through a half-open door. Wood-planked walls. A stone fireplace that looked like it hadn't been used in months. 2 weeks. He had to survive 2 weeks in here with her. This is a joke, right? Riley Morrison's voice cut through his assessment, sharp as broken glass. She stood in the doorway, snowflakes melting in her dark auburn hair, green eyes blazing with the same fury that had been simmering since they'd left pack territory 3 hours ago. There's one bedroom, Kade. One. I noticed. He moved past her, carrying supplies toward the kitchen area, trying to ignore how her scent, winter pine and something uniquely her, made his wolf surge against his control. 2 years. He'd managed to avoid being alone with her for 2 years. Ever since the night his wolf had recognized her as his mate, and she'd made it crystal clear she wanted nothing to do with destiny, fate, or him. Now the universe was laughing at them both. The couch pulls out, he said flatly, unpacking canned goods with more force than necessary. You can have the bedroom. How generous. Riley kicked the door shut and locked the deadbolts, all 5 of them. Her hands shook slightly, betraying the fear she was trying so hard to hide beneath layers of anger. 2 weeks stuck in a glorified closet with you. This is Alpha Kane's idea of protection. Kade's jaw tightened. He wanted to remind her that she was only in this mess because she'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The pack's healing clinic, working late when she'd seen someone she shouldn't have seen doing something that could tear their pack apart. A council member. A murder. And now that council member wanted her dead before she could testify. But the exhaustion in Riley's voice, despite her bravado, made him swallow the sharp retort. Kane sent his best, Kade said simply, moving to check the windows. All sealed, storm shutters ready to deploy. The safe house sat on the edge of pack territory, buried in forest that would be impassable once the blizzard hit, which, according to the weather reports, would be in less than 6 hours. That's me, whether you like it or not. Your humility is overwhelming. I didn't take this job for your approval. He met her glare across the small space, and the air between them crackled with more than animosity. The mate bond thrummed beneath his skin, a constant electric awareness of exactly where she stood, how her pulse jumped when he looked at her, the way her breathing hitched. She felt it too. He knew she did. Riley broke eye contact first, turning toward the bedroom with her shoulders rigid. I need to call Mara, she said, pulling out her phone. Let my sister know I'm okay. No calls. Kade crossed to her in 3 strides, his hand covering hers before she could dial. The contact sent heat racing up his arm, and Riley sucked in a sharp breath. No phones, no electronic communication. Orders from Kane himself. The traitor has connections, tech-savvy ones. We can't risk anyone tracking your location. You can't be serious. But she was already pulling away from his touch like it burned. Mara will worry herself sick. Kane will tell her you're safe. That has to be enough. He gentled his voice just a fraction. I know this isn't easy, Riley. But if Marcus Crane finds out where you are, neither of us will leave this mountain alive. The name hung between them like a curse. Marcus Crane, council member, decorated warrior, and the wolf Riley had witnessed strangling another pack member in a dispute over territory rights. His victim had been young, ambitious, and vocal about challenging the council's decisions. Now he was dead, and the only witness was a healer who'd been retrieving medical supplies from the clinic's storage room. Riley's face paled, but she lifted her chin. I'm not afraid of Marcus. Then you're a fool. Kade returned to securing the perimeter, checking the mountain ash boundaries that would mask their scent, testing the reinforced door frame. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. Is that what the great Kade Blackthorn feels? Fear. Her tone mocked, but when he glanced back, something raw flickered in her eyes. Curiosity. Maybe even concern. Every enforcer worth his rank knows fear, Kade said. The trick is not letting it control you. Riley was quiet for a moment, her fingers trailing along the back of the worn couch. The cabin felt even smaller with her in it, her presence filling every corner of his awareness. He could hear her heartbeat, elevated but steady, could smell the lingering adrenaline from their hurried escape from Pack lands. Why you? She asked finally. Kane has a dozen enforcers. Why send you specifically to babysit me? Because you're my mate, and my wolf would tear apart anyone else who tried to guard you this closely. But he couldn't say that. Not when she'd spent 2 years making sure they were never alone together, never forced to acknowledge what thrummed between them like a living thing. Because I follow orders, Kade said instead. And I don't get distracted. The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. He'd been distracted since the moment she'd walked into Pack territory 3 years ago. A nomad healer looking for a permanent home, with defensive walls a mile high and secrets in her eyes. He'd been distracted through every Pack meeting where she challenged authority, every territorial run where her wolf's howl made his chest ache, every God's damned moment of every day when he fought the urge to claim what was his by every law of nature and fate. Riley laughed, short and humorless. Right, because you're a machine. Kane's perfect soldier. Better than being a reckless healer who works alone after dark in an unlocked clinic. Her eyes flashed. That clinic is Pack territory. I should be safe there. You should use common sense. Kade rounded on her, frustration bleeding through his control. Marcus had been acting strange for weeks. Several Pack members reported it. You think he's the only one with secrets worth killing for? You think you're invincible because you can heal broken bones and cure infections. I think I can take care of myself. Riley's voice rose to match his. I've been doing it my whole life, long before I joined this Pack. Long before Alpha Kane decided I needed a bodyguard. And long before you decided I was some kind of... She cut herself off abruptly, cheeks flushing. Some kind of what? Kade stepped closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. Say it, Riley. Nothing. She turned away, but not before he saw the conflict warring in her expression. It's nothing. The cabin suddenly felt suffocating. The space between them charged with unspoken words, unacknowledged truths. Outside, wind began to howl through the trees, the blizzard's first whispers. Kade forced himself to step back. We need to prepare for the storm. Help me bring in firewood from the shed out back. Once this weather hits, we won't be able to access anything outside. For a moment, he thought she might refuse just to be contrary. Then Riley grabbed her coat from where she'd dropped it and headed for the back door without a word. They worked in tense silence, hauling armloads of split logs and stacking them near the fireplace. The temperature was already dropping, the sky darkening to an ominous gray-white. Kade's wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin, unhappy about the forced proximity, but also satisfied. His mate was close. His mate was safe under his protection, even if she hated every second of it. That's enough, he said as Riley deposited another load. Snowflakes clung to her hair, her cheeks flushed from cold and exertion. Beautiful, his wolf whispered. Ours. Not ours, Kade told it firmly. Not if she doesn't want to be. Riley brushed past him to warm her hands by the fireplace he'd gotten burning. So what's the plan? We just sit here for 2 weeks? Stare at the walls. We survive. We stay alert. We wait for Kane's signal that it's safe to return. Kade locked the back door, testing it twice. And we don't kill each other. That last one might be the biggest challenge, Riley muttered, but there was less venom in it now. The fire's warmth was already making the cabin feel more habitable, less like a prison, more like a home. Kade shook off the thought. There are books on the shelf, cards in the kitchen drawer, battery-powered radio for emergencies only. No TV, no power lines to this location. There's a generator for essentials, but we minimize use. Less noise, less chance of detection. Riley sighed, sinking onto the couch and pulling off her boots. 2 weeks in the 18th century. Fantastic. 2 weeks alive, Kade corrected. He stood by the window, watching the snow begin to fall in earnest. Already the trees were disappearing into white. That's what matters. Is it? Riley's voice was quieter now, thoughtful. Marcus is one wolf. You're an alpha enforcer. Why does Kane think we need to hide out here instead of just dealing with him? Kade considered how much to tell her. Kane's orders had been clear. Protect Riley, keep her isolated. Let the Alpha handle the political fallout of arresting a council member. But Riley deserved to know what she was facing. Marcus isn't acting alone, Kade said finally. Kane suspects he has allies on the council, maybe beyond. This goes deeper than one murder. If you testify, you're not just putting Marcus away. You're exposing corruption that could reach the highest levels of pack leadership. Riley's face went even paler. You're saying there's a conspiracy. I'm saying Kane is being careful. The fewer people who know where you are, the better. Even among his trusted enforcers, only 2 know this location. Kade turned from the window. Me and the Alpha himself. So if anything happens to us here, Kane will know exactly who to blame. Kade's smile held no humor. And trust me, Riley, you don't want Kane Thorne as your enemy. The wind howled louder, rattling the storm shutters. Riley wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. Vulnerable. His wolf whined, demanding he go to her, comfort her, protect her from the fear he could smell beneath her defiant exterior. But Kade stayed where he was. Crossing that distance would mean crossing other lines too, and Riley had made her boundaries clear. We should eat something, he said instead. Then get some rest. Tomorrow we'll establish a routine, work out a schedule. Kade. Riley's voice stopped him as he moved toward the kitchen. When he looked back, she was staring at the fire, profile gilded by firelight. Thank you for taking this assignment. I know I'm not the easiest person to protect. Your pack, Kade said simply. That's all that matters. But they both knew it wasn't true. She was so much more than pack. She was the reason his wolf howled at the moon. The reason he'd turned down a promotion that would have sent him to another territory. The reason he both dreaded and craved every moment of the next 2 weeks. Riley didn't respond, just kept staring at the flames like they held answers neither of them wanted to hear. Outside, the blizzard descended in full force, sealing them in, sealing them together. And as Kade prepared a simple meal in the tiny kitchen, hyper-aware of Riley's every movement, every breath, every shift of her weight on the creaking couch, he realized that Marcus Crane might not be the biggest threat they faced in this cabin. The mate bond was, and it was getting stronger by the minute. Chapter 2. The first night was hell. Riley lay rigid in the cabin's single bed, staring at ceiling beams she couldn't see in the darkness, listening to every sound from the main room where Kade had unfolded the couch. The ancient plumbing groaned. Wind screamed against the shutters. And beneath it all, she could hear him breathing, steady, controlled, maddeningly close despite the wall between them. She could feel him. That was the worst part. Even through wood and distance, the mate bond hummed like a tuning fork against her ribs, a constant awareness that made her skin feel too tight. This was exactly why she'd avoided him for 2 years. Riley pressed her palms against her eyes. She'd known the moment she'd crossed into Shadowpine Pack territory that she was making a mistake. Her wolf had recognized Kade Blackthorn at the welcome ceremony, recognized him and wanted him with an intensity that terrified her, because wanting meant needing meant vulnerability. And Riley Morrison had learned the hard way that vulnerability got you destroyed. Her phone, now powered off and buried in her duffel per Kade's orders, held exactly 3 photos. One of her younger sister Mara, the only family who'd stuck by her when everything fell apart. One of her mentor, the healer who'd taught her that medicine could be a second chance at purpose. And one of the mates she'd left bleeding on her old pack's territory 7 years ago. The male who'd used the mate bond to control her, manipulate her, and nearly kill her when she'd finally found the strength to run. Never again, she'd sworn. Never again would she let destiny dictate her choices. But Kade wasn't like Derek. Riley knew that intellectually. Kade was honorable where Derek had been cruel, protective where Derek had been possessive. Kade followed pack law. Derek had thought himself above it. Knowing the difference didn't make the fear any easier to manage. A soft knock on the bedroom door made her bolt upright. Riley. Kade's voice low and careful. You okay in there? Your heartbeat. I'm fine. She winced at how sharp she sounded. Just can't sleep. Strange bed. A pause. She could practically feel him weighing whether to push or let it go. There's chamomile tea in the kitchen, he said finally. Might help. Thanks. Riley waited until his footsteps retreated before she exhaled. Even his consideration felt dangerous, like kindness designed to lower her defenses. She gave up on sleep and padded into the main room, wrapped in an oversized sweater. Kade had left a small lamp burning, battery-powered, throwing soft shadows across the space. He'd folded the couch back up and was sitting at the kitchen table, cleaning his service weapon with methodical precision. Couldn't sleep either? Riley asked, moving to heat water on the camp stove. Enforcers learned to sleep light, especially on protection details. Kade didn't look up from his work, but she felt his awareness of her like static electricity. Storm's getting worse. We're officially snowed in. Riley glanced at the shuttered windows, seeing white even through the cracks. How much snow? 3 feet and counting. Roads are impassable. He set down the cleaning cloth, finally meeting her eyes. Good news is, nobody's tracking us through that. Bad news is, we're completely isolated. Just us and your sparkling personality for 2 weeks. Joy. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Could be worse. Could be Marcus's cousin. He never stops talking. Despite herself, Riley almost laughed. Jace. He once spent 30 minutes explaining his fantasy football strategy to me while I was stitching up his sparring injuries. 45 minutes about his truck's suspension system, Kade countered. While I was supposed to be teaching hand-to-hand combat. You win. Riley poured hot water over the tea bag, breathing in chamomile and honey. The domesticity of the moment felt surreal. She couldn't remember the last time she'd shared late-night tea with anyone, let alone the male whose proximity made her wolf preen and her survival instincts scream warnings. Kade returned to his weapon maintenance, and Riley found herself studying him in the lamplight. He was big even for a wolf shifter, broad-shouldered, heavily muscled, with the kind of presence that made others instinctively step back. Black hair kept military short, steel-gray eyes that noticed everything, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite. Handsome in a harsh, uncompromising way, and completely focused on his task, giving her privacy to look her fill. Can I ask you something? The words escaped before Riley could stop them. Blame the exhaustion, the fear, the weird intimacy of the darkened cabin. Depends on the question. Why haven't you challenged it? The mate bond. Riley wrapped both hands around her mug. Your alpha enforcer. You could have invoked pack law, forced a claiming. Kane would have backed you. Everyone knows his stance on destined mates. Kade's hands stilled on the weapon. For a long moment he said nothing, and Riley thought he might not answer at all. Then he set down the gun and looked at her fully. Really looked at her, with an intensity that made her breath catch. Because you're terrified, he said simply. And I don't claim what doesn't want to be claimed. The blunt honesty hit harder than anger would have. Riley's fingers tightened on the mug. I'm not. You are. Kade's voice was gentle but implacable. You've been running from this bond since the moment we met. I don't know why. He held up a hand when she opened her mouth. And I'm not asking you to explain. But I know fear when I see it, Riley. I see it in suspects, in young wolves facing their first real fight, in people who've been hurt before. She wanted to deny it. Wanted to throw his perception back in his face with the same defensive walls that had protected her for 7 years. But something about the quiet cabin, the isolation, the way Kade spoke like he actually saw her, and not just the inconvenient mate he'd been assigned. I had a mate before, Riley heard herself say. In my old pack. Derek. Kade went very still. What happened? He used the bond. The words tasted like ash. At first it was subtle. Suggestions that felt like my own thoughts. Preferences that slowly became requirements. He'd push on the bond when he wanted me compliant. Pull back when I got too independent. I thought. Her voice cracked and she hated it. I thought it was normal. That's what mates did. Until the day he used it to keep me pinned during a challenge match against another male who'd insulted him. Riley. Kade's voice had gone deadly quiet. I couldn't move. Couldn't shift. Derek held me down through the bond while his opponent beat me bloody, proving I was too weak to deserve an alpha's son. Riley stared into her tea, seeing blood instead. The healers said I'd never walk without a limp. But my mentor, Astrid, she was visiting from another territory. She saw what Derek had done, saw the bond manipulation. She helped me break the bond illegally and get out before Derek could stop me. Illegally, Kade repeated. You mean? I mean it should have killed me. Breaking a mate bond without the other's consent usually does. But Astrid was powerful and desperate, and she managed to sever it enough for me to run. Riley finally looked up, meeting Kade's horrified gaze. Derek survived barely. Last I heard, he still can't shift properly. His wolf never forgave him for what he did. Kade's hands had curled into fists on the table. That's not what a mate bond is supposed to be. Isn't it? Riley laughed bitterly. It's a connection that gives one person access to another's mind, body, will. That's power, Kade. And power corrupts. Not if both people respect the bond. Not if there's trust. I don't trust easily anymore. Riley set down her mug with a sharp click. So yes, I've been avoiding you. Because every instinct I have for self-preservation says that letting you in, letting this bond form, will end with me losing myself again. And I can't, her voice broke. I can't survive that twice. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything Riley had just exposed. She'd never told anyone the full story, not even Mara. Certainly not the pack that had welcomed her without knowing she was a failed, broken mate fleeing her past. Kade pushed back from the table and stood. Riley tensed, half expecting something. Anger, pity, or worse, the pressing insistence that he was different, that their bond would be different. Instead, he moved to the fireplace and added another log, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Thank you for telling me. I know that wasn't easy. That's it. Riley couldn't keep the surprise from her tone. No speech about how not all mates are like Derek. No reassurance that you'd never use the bond that way. Would you believe me if I gave that speech? Kade glanced over his shoulder, and the understanding in his eyes made her throat tight. Trust isn't built with words, Riley. It's built with actions over time. And we've got 2 weeks where you're going to see exactly what kind of male I am. I already know what kind of male you are, Riley said quietly. That's what scares me, because you'd be so easy to trust. And if I'm wrong, then I'll prove you right, and you'll have every reason to hate me. Kade turned fully, firelight casting shadows across his features. But I'm not Derek. I won't push you, won't pressure you, won't use my rank or my strength or this bond to manipulate what you feel. Whatever happens between us, or doesn't happen, it's your choice. Entirely. Always. Riley searched his face for deception and found only steady certainty. Something in her chest cracked open just slightly, letting in a single ray of hope she immediately tried to smother. That's the tea talking, she said, aiming for lightness and landing somewhere near desperation. Or the isolation. Tomorrow you'll regret dumping all that psychology on me. Tomorrow I'll still mean every word. Kade moved back to the table, collecting his weapon and cleaning supplies. Get some rest, Riley. You're safe here. From Marcus, from me, from everything. That's a promise. He headed for the couch, leaving Riley alone with her cooling tea and the realization that she'd just handed her deepest wound to the male she'd been running from. And he'd treated it with the kind of care she hadn't known she was starving for. This was dangerous. More dangerous than any external threat. Because part of her, the part she'd buried deep for 7 years, wanted to believe him. As Riley retreated to the bedroom and finally felt sleep pulling at her, she heard Kade's voice, barely a whisper, probably not meant for her ears at all. I'll never hurt you like that. I swear it. And God's help her, she wanted it to be true. Chapter 3. Day 3 of lockdown dawned gray and bitter cold. Riley woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. She stumbled from the bedroom, still half asleep, to find Kade scowling at a skillet of blackened something. Is that supposed to be breakfast or a threat? She asked. Kade glared at the smoking pan. Eggs. Allegedly. How do you burn eggs? Special talent. He dumped the charred remains into the trash with more force than necessary. I can track a rogue wolf through 50 miles of wilderness, but apparently cooking is beyond my skill set. Riley bit back a smile. Move over. I don't need. Move. Over. She hip-checked him away from the stove, her earlier wariness overridden by the healer's instinct to fix problems. If we're stuck here for 2 weeks, I refuse to survive on whatever that was. Go, patrol or something. Enforcer things. Kade looked torn between protesting and being grateful. Gratitude won. He retreated to check the perimeter sensors, while Riley assessed the damage. 10 minutes later, she'd produced actual scrambled eggs, toast, and even managed to salvage some bacon from the freezer. Kade returned as she was plating everything, his expression doing something complicated when he saw the domestic scene. You didn't have to do this, he said. Consider it survival instinct. Sit. Riley slid a plate across the counter, then took the stool on the opposite side. Distance. Safe distance. Even if the kitchen island was barely 3 feet wide. They ate in silence, but it wasn't quite as hostile as the previous days. Something had shifted last night. Not fixed, not resolved, but acknowledged. Riley had shown him her scars. Kade had promised not to deepen them. It wasn't trust yet, but it was something. So what do enforcers actually do? Riley asked, surprising herself. Besides burn breakfast and intimidate suspects? Kade's eyebrow lifted. Making conversation? What happened to leave me alone for 2 weeks? Boredom is setting in. I'm already halfway through the one romance novel on that shelf, and if I have to play another game of solitaire, I'll start howling. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. We keep order. Investigate crimes, track rogues, protect pack members, enforce Alpha's law. Basically, we're the muscle behind pack stability. Sounds lonely. Sometimes. Kade finished his eggs, studying her with that unnerving intensity. But necessary. Packs need boundaries. Rules. Someone to hold the line when chaos threatens. Is that what you are? A line holder. It's what I was trained to be. My father was head enforcer before me. Military discipline, pack loyalty, duty above everything else. He paused. He died protecting our Alpha in a coup attempt. I was 18. Riley's chest tightened. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. But it shaped everything I became. Kade carried his plate to the sink. Your turn. What made you want to be a healer? Riley should have deflected. Instead, she heard herself answering. My mother. She died from an infection that could have been prevented if we'd had a proper healer in our pack. I was 10. I decided then that no one else would die from something fixable. Not if I could help it. That's why you work too hard. Take risks. Kade's voice held understanding rather than criticism. You're trying to save everyone. I'm trying to do my job. You're trying to make up for the one death you couldn't prevent. He said it gently, without judgment. I recognize the pattern. I see it in a mirror every morning. Their eyes met across the small kitchen, and Riley felt that dangerous pull again. The sense that Kade saw her. Not the prickly healer everyone else dealt with, but the girl who'd lost her mother. The woman who'd survived Derek. The wolf who carried too much guilt and not enough trust. She looked away first. We should establish that routine you mentioned. Before we go completely cabin crazy. Kade accepted the subject change with grace. Agreed. I'll take morning perimeter check. You handle breakfast if you're willing. Only because I value my stomach lining. Harsh but fair. That almost smile again. Afternoons we can split. Reading, training, whatever keeps us sane. I'll cook dinner. Absolutely not. Or we can cook together. Compromise. Kade's gray eyes glinted with challenge. You can supervise so I don't commit any more culinary crimes. Fine. But I get veto power on ingredients. Deal. They spent the rest of the morning establishing separate spaces. Kade set up a makeshift training area in one corner. Push-ups, pull-ups using a ceiling beam, combat drills that made the cabin shake. Riley claimed the other corner near the window, organizing medical supplies she'd brought from the clinic. She wasn't technically on call, but habit ran deep. By afternoon, the cabin felt slightly less like a prison and more like cohabitation. Uncomfortable, tense cohabitation, but manageable. Riley was cataloging bandages when Kade's voice broke her concentration. Can I ask you something? She looked up to find him mid-push-up, arms corded with muscle, not even breathing hard. That depends on the question. Why did you choose Shadowpine? When you left your old pack, you could have gone anywhere. What brought you to Kane's territory? Riley set down her inventory list. Astrid. She sent word that Shadowpine needed a healer, that Kane was fair, that it would be safe. She knew about my situation, about Derek. She thought a new start might help. Did it? Yes and no. Riley traced the edge of a gauze package. I found purpose again. Found Mara. She followed me from our old pack 6 months later. Built a life. But I never stopped looking over my shoulder. For Derek. For the next Derek. For the next person who'd see vulnerability as an invitation. She met his gaze. Until you, I'd done a pretty good job avoiding that scenario. Kade lowered himself to the floor, expression serious. I'm not looking for vulnerability, Riley. I'm looking for partnership. Equals. The mate bond doesn't work that way. There's always an imbalance. Then we learned to balance it. He stood, grabbing a towel to wipe sweat from his face. Look, I'm not saying it's easy, or that I have all the answers. But rejecting the bond entirely because you had one bad experience? That's like refusing to ever heal anyone again because you lost your mother. Riley flinched. That's not the same, isn't it? Kade moved closer, and she forced herself not to retreat. Both require trust. Both carry risk of pain. But you chose to be a healer anyway, because the alternative was letting fear win. Why is this different? Because healing others doesn't cost me my autonomy. And you think accepting me would? Kade's voice was soft but insistent. Riley, I'm not asking you to surrender. I'm asking you to consider that maybe, two people can share a bond without it becoming a cage. Riley's heart hammered against her ribs. He was too close, smelled too good. Leather and pine and clean sweat. Her wolf was stirring, interested, yearning. It would be so easy to just step forward. Let him in. Trust the promise in his eyes. And if she was wrong, she'd lose everything. Again. I need air. Riley grabbed her coat, heading for the back door. Riley, the storm. I'll stay on the porch. I just need space. She didn't wait for his response, just pushed outside into the biting cold. The covered porch was mostly clear of snow, just a few drifts in the corners. Riley gripped the railing, gulping frigid air, trying to steady her racing pulse. The forest stretched endlessly white, trees bowed under the weight of snow, beautiful and isolating in equal measure. The door opened behind her. Of course Kade had followed. I'm fine, she said without turning. No, you're not. He stayed near the door, giving her space even as his presence enveloped her. I pushed too hard. I'm sorry. You're just being honest. I'm the one with the problem. Having boundaries isn't a problem. Kade's voice carried over the wind. I meant what I said, Riley. No pressure. I want you to know that whatever Derek taught you about mate bonds, that's not what this is. That's not what we could be. Riley turned, finding him backlit by the cabin's soft glow. How can you be so sure? You don't even know me. I know you stayed late at the clinic because you were helping a teenage wolf who was too embarrassed to come during regular hours. I know you sneak extra food to the Omega families who are too proud to ask for help. I know you argued with Kane himself about modernizing our medical protocols because you give a damn about keeping this pack healthy. Kade's eyes were steady. I know you're brave and stubborn and brilliant. And I know that you deserve a mate who would burn the world down before he'd use a bond to control you. Something hot and sharp lodged in Riley's throat. Stop. Why? Because you're making it really hard to keep hating you. Good. Kade smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine and devastating. Hate is exhausting. Truce is much more efficient. Despite everything, Riley laughed. It escaped before she could stop it, breaking the tension like ice cracking. You're impossible. So I've been told. He extended a hand. Come back inside before we both freeze. I promise to stop being philosophical and just make dinner. You mean I make dinner while you provide moral support? That's a more accurate assessment of my skills, yes. Riley stared at his offered hand. This was a choice. She could stay behind her walls, safe and alone. Or she could take one small step towards something unknown and terrifying and maybe, possibly, worth the risk. She took his hand. Kade's fingers closed around hers, warm and solid, and the mate bond sang with approval. Riley felt it this time. Not a cage, but a bridge. An invitation, not a command. They went inside together, and Riley tried to ignore how right it felt when Kade didn't immediately let go. How natural it seemed when they moved around the small kitchen in tandem. Kade chopping vegetables while Riley seasoned chicken, working together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. How easy it was to forget, just for a moment, that she was supposed to be keeping him at arm's length. And how much that terrified her. Chapter 4. Day 5 brought a thaw, both in weather and between them. The storm had passed overnight, leaving a glittering landscape of white. Kade took advantage of the brief clear morning to venture outside for a proper perimeter check, leaving Riley alone with her thoughts and the overwhelming urge to organize something. She settled on his weapons cache. The enforcer traveled prepared. 2 firearms, multiple knives, emergency supplies, and enough ammunition to hold off a small army. Riley was carefully sorting it all when Kade returned, stomping snow off his boots. Find anything interesting? He asked, shaking frost from his hair. Just wondering how many throats you're expecting to cut. Riley held up a particularly vicious-looking blade. That's for rope cutting, actually. Emergency extraction. Kade crossed to her, taking the knife and demonstrating the grip. See the serrated edge? Better for sawing through restraints than stabbing. His hands covered hers on the handle, adjusting her position, and Riley's breath hitched. This close, she could see silver flecks in his gray eyes, could feel heat radiating from his body despite the cold he'd just come from. Like this, Kade murmured, guiding her fingers. Firm grip, wrist locked. If you ever need to cut someone free, or yourself, you want control. And the 15 other knives? Different purposes. Different situations. His lips quirked. Also, I like knives. I'm getting that impression. Riley stepped back, breaking the contact before she did something stupid like lean into him. Perimeter clear? For now. Snow's deep, but I found tracks. Deer, mostly. One set that might be wolf, but they're old. At least 3 days. We're alone out here. The reminder should have been comforting. Instead, Riley felt the weight of their isolation more keenly. Just them. No buffer, no distraction, no escape from the bond that seemed to pull tighter every day. I thought we could try something, Kade said, moving to the kitchen. Since we're getting along reasonably well. What kind of something? Riley eyed him suspiciously. Cooking lesson. You teach me not to burn things. I teach you basic self-defense. He caught her expression. Not because I think you're helpless, but because if something happens to me, you should know how to protect yourself. Riley wanted to argue. The reasonable part of her brain insisted that learning defensive skills was smart, practical. The paranoid part whispered that getting physically close to Kade was asking for trouble. The lonely part that was tired of fighting one. Fine, but if you burn my lunch, the deal's off. They spent the afternoon in the strange dance of teaching and learning. Kade proved surprisingly teachable in the kitchen once Riley established that medium heat didn't mean inferno. He followed instructions, asked questions, and only swore moderately when he nicked his finger chopping onions. Riley found herself enjoying it more than she wanted to admit. Your turn, Kade said after they'd successfully produced a decent stir-fry. He gestured to the cleared space near the fireplace. Basic defensive stance first. Riley felt suddenly self-conscious. Right here. Best we've got. Unless you want to spar in 3 feet of snow. He moved to the center of the space, beckoning. Come on. I'll go slow. The next hour was torture of a different kind. Kade was patient, methodical, adjusting her stance with careful touches. A hand on her hip, fingers correcting her shoulder position, his voice low and steady as he explained weight distribution, balance, how to use an attacker's momentum against them. The key is not matching strength, he explained, demonstrating a move that had Riley suddenly pinned against his chest, his arm across her shoulders. Not tight, not threatening, controlled. It's about leverage and surprise. Someone grabs you like this, you drop your weight, twist into them. Riley followed his instruction, and suddenly Kade was off balance, stumbling back. Exactly. His grin was genuine, proud. Again. Faster this time. They drilled until Riley's muscles burned and sweat dampened her shirt. Kade never once made her feel weak or incapable. He just kept pushing, encouraging, celebrating each small victory like she'd won a championship. That's enough for today, he said finally, breathing only slightly harder than normal while Riley was actively dying. You did great. I did adequately, Riley corrected, collapsing onto the couch. You're just a good teacher. My father insisted on proper training. For everyone, not just enforcers. Kade grabbed water bottles from the small fridge, tossing her one. He believed that pack strength came from every member being prepared, not just the warriors. Sounds like a good male. He was. Kade's expression went distant. Hard but fair. Demanded excellence, but never without teaching how to achieve it. When he died, he trailed off, jaw tightening. Riley made a decision. Tell me about it. Kade's eyes snapped to hers. What? The coup attempt. What happened? Riley twisted the water bottle cap. You know my worst story. Fair's fair. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then Kade sank into the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Our alpha, Kane's father, had an advisor who wanted more power. Marcus Crane, actually. He's been a problem for longer than most people realize. Kade's voice was flat, controlled. Marcus convinced several warriors that the alpha was weak, that new leadership would bring prosperity. They planned to challenge him during the full moon gathering when he'd be distracted by ceremony. But your father found out. 2 days before. He didn't have proof, just instinct and overheard fragments. He went to the alpha anyway, recommended postponing the ceremony. The alpha dismissed it as paranoia. Kade's hands tightened. Dad stationed himself at the ceremony anyway. When Marcus's allies attacked, he was the only thing standing between them and our alpha. Riley's chest ached. He saved him. Long enough for Kane and other enforcers to respond. Dad took 4 of them down before. Kade's voice cracked, just barely. Before the fifth one got him from behind. By the time reinforcements arrived, it was over. The alpha lived. My father didn't. You were there. I was supposed to be. Dad had told me to guard the perimeter, keep watch for external threats. I didn't understand why until after. He knew I'd try to fight beside him, and he didn't want. Kade stopped, swallowed hard. He wanted me to live. So he sent me away. Riley didn't think. She crossed the space between them and wrapped her arms around Kade's shoulders, pulling his head against her chest. He went rigid with surprise, then melted into the embrace with a shuddering breath. He was doing his job, Riley said softly, stroking Kade's hair. Protecting you was part of protecting the pack. I should have been there. Then you'd both be dead, and your pack would have lost 2 good enforcers instead of 1. She felt Kade's arms come around her waist, tentative at first, then tighter. He made the right call, Kade. The hard call. That's what parents do. They stayed like that, wrapped together in the quiet cabin, while Kade's breathing slowly steadied and Riley marveled at her own boldness. This was dangerous. This was letting him in. This was exactly what she'd sworn not to do. But Kade had held her trauma with care. She could do the same for his. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Thank you. For what? Understanding. Not pitying. Just understanding. Kade's hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You're remarkable, Riley Morrison. I'm a mess, she whispered. We both are. His smile was sad and sweet and entirely too appealing. Maybe that's okay. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Riley could feel the mate bond thrumming, eager, hopeful. 1 more inch and she could kiss him. Could let this thing between them finally spark into something more. Instead, she stepped back. Because wanting wasn't the same as ready, and ready wasn't the same as safe. We should eat, she said, voice shakier than she'd like. Before the food gets cold. Disappointment flickered across Kade's face, but he nodded. Right. Yeah. They moved to the kitchen, the easy companionship from earlier now tangled with tension. Riley served the stir-fry while Kade set the table, both of them carefully not touching, not meeting each other's eyes. Riley, Kade said as they sat down. Don't. She gripped her fork like a lifeline. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I was just going to say thank you. For listening. He gestured helplessly. Everything. Oh. Riley felt her cheeks heat. You're welcome. They ate in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people processing, adjusting, trying to navigate uncharted territory without a map. As Riley cleaned dishes later, watching Kade add wood to the fire, she realized something that should have terrified her, but instead felt almost like relief. She was starting to trust him. Not completely. Not without reservations. But enough that his presence no longer felt like a threat. Enough that she could imagine, barely tentatively, a future where the mate bond wasn't a cage. Where maybe possibly it could be a choice. Chapter 5. The nightmare hit on day 7. Riley jerked awake with a scream trapped in her throat. Derek's face still vivid behind her eyes. Derek with his hand on the bond, pulling her down, holding her immobile while another wolf tore into her side. The phantom pain was so real she gasped, clutching her ribs where old scars tissue twisted beneath her skin. The bedroom door crashed open. Kade stood silhouetted in the doorway, fully alert despite the middle of the night. Weapon drawn until he registered the threat was internal, not external. Riley. He holstered the gun, crossing to the bed. Hey, you're okay. You're safe. I know. But her hands were shaking, her breathing ragged. I know. It's just old memories. I'm fine. You're not fine. Kade crouched beside the bed, careful not to touch. Do you want to talk about it? No. Yes. I don't know. Riley pressed her palms against her eyes. It's stupid. It's been 7 years. I should be over this. Trauma doesn't have a timeline. His voice was steady, grounding. And nightmares don't care about should. Riley lowered her hands, finding his face in the dim light from the main room. He looked genuinely concerned, no judgment or impatience. Just present. It was the fight, she heard herself say. The one where Derek held me down. I don't usually dream about it anymore, but being here, being close to. She gestured helplessly at the space between them. I think my subconscious is freaking out. About me. About vulnerability. Riley pulled the blanket tighter around herself. About letting someone in who could hurt me. Kade was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, moving toward the door, and Riley felt the loss of his presence like cold water. "Wait," she said before she could stop herself. "Don't go." He paused, looking back. "I'm making it worse. I should give you space." "You're making it better." The admission cost her, but it was true. "When I woke up, I was back there. Back in that moment. But then you came in, and it was now again. You pulled me out of it." "Riley." She swallowed her pride. "Could you stay? In here, I mean. Not in the bed. But just nearby? I don't want to be alone with my head right now." Kade looked torn, clearly weighing her needs against his desire not to push boundaries. Then he grabbed the armchair from the corner, dragging it next to the bed. "I'll be right here," he said, settling into the chair despite it being nowhere near large enough for his frame. "For as long as you need." Relief flooded through Riley. She lay back down, curled on her side facing him. "Thank you. Always." They stayed like that in the darkness, Riley's breathing gradually steadying while Kade kept his silent vigil. She should have felt exposed, vulnerable. Instead, she felt guarded, protected by choice rather than force. "Kade, In the dream, Derek was saying I'd never escape him. That the bond was forever, broken or not." Riley's fingers twisted in the blanket. "Is that true? Can you ever really break free of a mate?" Kade shifted, the chair creaking. "Physically, yes. Astrid proved that by helping you sever the bond. But the memories, the impact, those take longer to heal. Maybe they never fully go away." "Comforting. But," Kade continued, "new experiences can overwrite old patterns. Better memories can replace painful ones. It's not about erasing what happened. It's about building something strong enough that the past becomes just that. Past. Not present. Not future." Riley studied his profile in the darkness. "Is that what you're trying to do? Give me better memories?" "I'm trying to give you choice. Agency. Proof that not all wolves abuse power." He met her eyes. "But if better memories are a side effect, I'm not complaining." "You're a strange enforcer, Kade Blackthorn." "How so?" "Most males in your position would have demanded I accept the bond. Claim me by now, willing or not. Pack law would support it. Pack law is a framework for civilization, not an excuse for cruelty." Kade's voice hardened. "And any male who forces a claim is no mate. He's just a coward who can't earn genuine acceptance." "You say that like it's simple." "It is simple. Doesn't mean it's easy." He stretched his legs, trying to find comfort in the too small chair. "My father once told me that real strength is knowing when not to use force. That the best enforcers lead by example, not intimidation." He sounds like he was an incredible male. He was. And he'd be ashamed of any son who used the mate bond as a weapon. Kade's jaw set. "So yeah, maybe I'm strange. But I'd rather be strange than be Derek." Riley felt something crack open in her chest. Something that had been locked tight since the day she'd run from her old pack. Not trust, not yet. But the possibility of it. The belief that maybe, just maybe, Kade meant every word. "Go to sleep, Riley," Kade said softly. "I've got watch." "Kade." "Yeah. When this is over, when we go back to pack lands, I'd like to try. Not the full mate bond. Not yet. But maybe dating? Getting to know each other without the pressure." She could hear his sharp inhale, feel his surprise through the bond that hummed between them. "I'd like that," Kade said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "I'd like that a lot." Riley smiled into the darkness and let herself drift off, secure in the knowledge that Kade would be there if the nightmares returned. He was. When she woke a few hours later from another anxiety dream, she found him exactly where he'd been, still awake, keeping watch. Their eyes met in the gray pre-dawn light. "Scoot over," Kade said. "What?" "The chair is torture. You're clearly not sleeping well, and we're both adults who can share a bed without it being a thing." He stood, stretching with a groan. "Scoot over. I promise to stay on my side." Riley's heart hammered. This was a test of her willingness to trust, of his restraint, of whether they could be close without chaos. She scooted over. Kade lay down on top of the covers, deliberately keeping space between them, still fully clothed. But his warmth radiated across the distance, and his scent, leather and pine and safety, wrapped around her. "Better?" he asked. "Better," Riley admitted. And when sleep pulled her under again, there were no more nightmares. Just the steady sound of Kade's breathing and the growing certainty that maybe, possibly, she was exactly where she needed to be. Chapter 6. Day 9 brought a crisis neither of them expected. Riley woke alone in bed, which shouldn't have bothered her as much as it did. She'd gotten used to Kade's presence over the past 2 nights. The warmth of him beside her, the security of knowing he was close. They'd maintained careful boundaries, but those boundaries had been slowly, inevitably shrinking. She found him at the kitchen table, staring at the emergency radio with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" Kade looked up, and the worry in his eyes sent fear skittering down her spine. "Message came through an hour ago. Coded, but I decrypted it. Marcus Crane escaped custody during transport to holding. Kane's suspects inside help." Riley's blood turned to ice. "He's coming for me. Kane doesn't think he knows your location, but he's ordered us to maintain radio silence and stay put until he can personally extract us." Kade's jaw was tight. "Problem is, the extraction window is 5 days out. We're stuck here longer than planned. 5 more days." Riley sank into the other chair. "Can we make it?" "Supplies. Food's fine. We have enough for 3 weeks if we're careful." Kade turned the radio off, securing it. "But Riley, if Marcus does find us somehow, if he brings backup, this cabin isn't built for a siege. We'd have to run. Into a forest buried in snow, with trained wolves hunting us." Riley's healer mind cataloged the dangers. Hypothermia, exhaustion, injury. "That's a death sentence. Not if I can help it." Kade reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "I won't let him hurt you. I promise." Riley wanted to believe him, but promises couldn't stop bullets or claws. "You can't promise that. Watch me." His grip tightened. "Riley, I need you to understand something. If it comes down to it, if Marcus finds us and it's a choice between your safety and mine, I need you to run. Don't look back, don't try to help. Just run." "Absolutely not. Not negotiable." Kade's voice turned hard, Enforcer cold. "You're the witness. You're what matters. I'm just the guard. You're not just anything." Riley jerked her hand away, anger flooding through her. "You think I'd leave you to die? After everything, I think you'd survive. And that's what matters." "To who? To your sense of duty? Your father's legacy?" Riley stood, pacing the small space. "Newsflash, Kade. I don't want to survive if it means watching you get torn apart protecting me. Then you understand how I've felt every day since I met you." Kade stood too, following her. "Every time you worked late alone. Every time you put yourself at risk for others. Every moment I've had to watch you from a distance and know that if something happened, if someone hurt you, I'd have been too far away to stop it." Riley spun to face him. "That's not fair. None of this is fair." His control cracked, raw emotion bleeding through. "Fair would be meeting you without a murder hanging over our heads. Fair would be courting you properly, taking you to dinner, earning your trust without trauma and forced proximity. Fair would be a mate bond that didn't terrify you because some bastard poisoned it before I ever had a chance. Kade, but I'll take unfair if it means keeping you alive. I'll take whatever scraps of your trust you're willing to give me. I'll sleep in a chair for the rest of my life if that's what makes you feel safe." He closed the distance between them, cupping her face with both hands. "Because you're mine, Riley. Not by force. Not by fate. By choice, my choice. And I choose you. Every time. In every way." Riley's breath caught. She could feel his hands trembling slightly, see the vulnerability in his eyes that he was finally letting her witness. This wasn't the controlled enforcer or the patient teacher. This was Kade stripped bare, offering everything. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. Not just of Marcus. Of this. Of you." Riley's hands came up to cover his. "Of how much I want to trust you. How easy it would be to fall. Then fall." Kade's forehead touched hers. "I'll catch you. Every single time." The kiss happened so naturally Riley couldn't have said who moved first. One moment they were breathing the same air, the next his lips were on hers. Soft at first, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't pull away. Riley sank into the kiss, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. Kade made a sound low in his throat, his arms banding around her waist, lifting her slightly off the ground as he deepened the kiss. It was everything Riley had been denying herself. Heat and hunger, and the overwhelming rightness of being exactly where she belonged. The mate bond sang between them, no longer a threat but a celebration. This was choice. This was consent. This was two people deciding that fear wouldn't win. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kade rested his forehead against hers. "Tell me that was okay. Tell me I didn't push." "You didn't push." Riley's hand slid up to his neck, fingers threading through his hair. "I chose this. I'm choosing you." "Riley." Her name was a prayer on his lips. I love you. I know it's too soon. I know we've barely had time, but I need you to know. I know. Riley kissed him again, softer this time. I'm not there yet, but I'm on my way. That's enough. Kade's smile was brilliant, transforming his usually serious face into something young and hopeful. That's more than enough. They spent the rest of the morning in each other's arms, making up for 2 years of distance. Kisses that ranged from tender to desperate. Touches that stayed careful but promised more. Conversations that meandered from serious to silly and back again. Tell me something nobody else knows, Riley said later, curled against Kade's side on the couch while snow fell softly outside. I write poetry, Kade admitted, and Riley pulled back to stare at him. You're joking. Terrible poetry. My father used to find the notebooks and tease me mercilessly. His ears were actually pink. But it helps me process things. Emotions. Duty. Loss. Can I read them sometime? Absolutely not. They're awful. Then why keep doing it? Kade was quiet for a moment. Because my father, for all his teasing, kept every notebook. After he died, I found them in his room, carefully stored, preserved. He never told me, but he valued them. My words. My feelings. His voice roughened. So I keep writing. For him. For me. For the things I can't say out loud. Riley's heart clenched. You just said something pretty important out loud. To me. You make it easier. Make everything easier. Kade pressed a kiss to her temple. Your turn. Something nobody knows. Riley considered what to share. Then decided if they were doing this, really doing this, he deserved the whole truth. I'm sterile, she said quietly. The damage Derek caused when he held me down. It was extensive. The healers did their best, but... She felt Kade tense beneath her. I can't have children. So if you're hoping for pups someday, you should know that's not possible with me. Riley. Kade shifted so he could see her face. Look at me. She did, reluctantly, expecting pity or disappointment. Instead, she found only fierce determination. I don't care, Kade said simply. I want you. If we decide we want children, there are pups in the pack who need homes, families who'd welcome fostering. But honestly, you, me, whatever life we build, that's enough. More than enough. You say that now. I say that always. He kissed her slow and thorough. Stop trying to give me reasons to walk away. It's not going to work. Riley felt tears prick her eyes. You're too good. I'm selfish. I found my mate, and I'm keeping her. Kade's grin was playful now. You're stuck with me, healer. Better get used to it. I think I can manage that. They settled back into comfortable silence, watching the snow fall, wrapped in each other's warmth. For the first time since arriving at the cabin, Riley felt genuinely safe. Not because of the walls or the weapons or the isolation. Because of the male holding her like she was precious. Like she was chosen. Like she was loved. The emergency radio crackled to life around noon, making them both jump. Kade was across the room in seconds, Riley right behind him. Blackthorn, come in. Kane's voice tight with urgency. Blackthorn, respond. Kade grabbed the radio. Blackthorn here. What's wrong? Marcus isn't alone. We interrogated one of his allies. He's got a team. 5 wolves, trained trackers. And Kade. Kane's pause made Riley's stomach drop. They know about the safe house. Someone leaked the location. You've got maybe 12 hours before they arrive. Riley felt the blood drain from her face. Kade's expression went cold and tactical. Extraction options? Kade asked. Storms rolling back in tonight. Choppers can't fly in those conditions. Closest backup is 8 hours out on foot through the snow, and that's optimistic. Kane's frustration bled through. You need to run. There's an old mining cave system 3 miles northeast. Get there. Hide until the storm passes. I'll have a team waiting at the northern extraction point. 3 miles in deep snow with wolves hunting us. Kade met Riley's eyes. Copy that. We'll move within the hour. Kade. Kane's voice softened slightly. Keep her safe. With my life. Kade clicked off the radio and immediately started grabbing supplies. Riley, pack light. Warm clothes, emergency supplies, nothing we don't absolutely need. We've got to move fast. Riley's healer training kicked in, overriding her fear. Medical kit. Water purification tablets. Emergency flares. Good. I'll handle weapons and food. Kade was already in motion, efficient and controlled. We leave in 45 minutes. Anything we can't carry gets left behind. They worked in synchronized silence, the easy intimacy from earlier replaced by grim determination. Riley shoved clothes into her pack, grabbed the medical supplies, tried not to think about Marcus and 5 trained killers coming for them. Hey, Kade caught her hand as she passed. We're going to make it. You can't know that. I know I'd move heaven and earth to keep you safe. He pulled her close for one brief, fierce kiss. Trust me, Riley. One more time. Trust me. Riley looked into his gray eyes, steady, certain, unflinching, and made her choice. I trust you. Kade's smile was quick and grateful. Then his enforcer mask slammed back into place. Good. Now let's move. We've got a long run ahead of us, and I'd like to be gone before Marcus's team gets close enough to track. They finished packing in silence, both acutely aware that everything was about to change. The cocoon of safety they'd built in the cabin was shattering. Now came the real test. Could they survive not just each other, but the wolves hunting them through the snow? Riley shouldered her pack and looked at Kade, seeing her fear reflected back at her. But also determination and something deeper. Something that looked like faith. Ready? He asked. No, but she nodded anyway. Ready. They stepped out into the cold, leaving the cabin behind, and started running toward an uncertain future with nothing but each other and the desperate hope that love and trust would be enough to see them through. Chapter 7. The forest was a maze of white and shadow. Riley's lungs burned as she pushed through snow that came up to her knees, Kade breaking trail ahead of her with relentless efficiency. They'd been running for over an hour, moving northeast toward the cave system Kane had mentioned. Behind them, their tracks carved an obvious path through the pristine snowscape. I know what you're thinking, Kade said, not even winded despite the brutal pace. About the tracks. Can't be helped. We need distance more than stealth right now. I wasn't. Riley stumbled over a hidden root, and Kade's hand shot out to steady her. Okay, I was thinking that. How far? 2 miles left. Maybe less. He scanned the tree line, his wolf close to the surface. We're making good time. A howl split the air behind them, distant but unmistakable. Riley's blood froze. That's not a good howl, she said. No, that's a hunting howl. Kade's jaw set. They're tracking us. Faster than expected. How? We just left. Marcus must have had advanced scouts. They saw us leave, called in the main group. Kade grabbed her hand, pulling her forward faster. We need to move. Now. They ran. Riley pushed past exhaustion, past the burning in her muscles, past the fear clawing at her throat. Kade led them through the densest parts of the forest where the canopy had prevented some snow accumulation, gaining precious speed. But the howls kept coming closer each time. Kade. Riley's voice came out gasping. They're gaining. I know. He veered left, following what might have been an old game trail. The caves are just ahead. If we can get inside, find the deep tunnels, we might lose them. Another howl, and this time Riley could hear the triumph in it. They'd been spotted. The hunt was on in earnest. There, Kade pointed to a rock outcropping barely visible through the trees. The cave entrance. Run, Riley. She didn't need to be told twice. They crashed through the last stretch of forest, Riley's pack catching on branches, her ankle twisting on hidden ice. She went down hard, crying out. Kade was there instantly. Can you stand? Yes, Pain lanced up her leg when she put weight on it. Twisted it. Not broken. I can walk. Not fast enough. Kade slung her pack over his shoulder alongside his own, then grabbed her hand. Lean on me. We're almost there. They hobbled toward the cave entrance together, Riley gritting her teeth against the pain. Behind them, branches cracked. Voices called out, male, aggressive, closing in. The cave mouth yawned before them, dark and unwelcoming. Kade pulled a flashlight from his belt, clicked it on, and dragged Riley inside just as the first wolf burst from the tree line. Go, go, go! Kade shoved her deeper into the cave. The entrance tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for them to run single file. Riley could hear pursuit behind them, boots on stone, harsh breathing, Marcus's voice shouting orders. Split up. Cover all exits. She doesn't leave this mountain alive. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber filled with mineral formations and multiple branching passages. Kade spun in a circle, assessing, then grabbed Riley's arm and pulled her toward the leftmost tunnel, the smallest, most cramped-looking one. They'll expect us to take the big tunnels, he whispered, extinguishing the flashlight. We go small, quiet, deep. You fit. Riley eyed the narrow opening. Barely. I'll manage. He pressed the flashlight into her hands. You first. I'll cover our rear. If something happens, if I tell you to run, you don't stop. You don't look back. You follow this tunnel system as deep as it goes, and you hide until Kane's team arrives. Understood? Kade. Understood. His voice was alpha command, enforcer absolute. Riley wanted to argue. Instead, she nodded and squeezed into the tunnel, her injured ankle screaming protest. The passage was claustrophobic, forcing her to move sideways in places. She could hear Kade behind her, his larger frame barely fitting, his breathing controlled but strained. Behind them, voices echoed through the main chamber. Check every tunnel. They can't have gone far. Riley clicked off the flashlight, plunging them into absolute darkness. She felt Kade's hand find hers in the black. Keep moving, he breathed against her ear. Slow. Quiet. They inched deeper into the mountain, feeling their way along cold stone walls. Riley's ankle throbbed. Her shoulders scraped rock. The darkness was so complete it felt solid, pressing in from all sides. A sound behind them, boots on stone, getting closer. Someone had entered their tunnel. Kade squeezed her hand once, then let go. Riley heard rather than saw him position himself to block the passage. Heard the whisper of a knife being drawn from its sheath. Come on. A male voice echoed up the tunnel. I can smell you in here. Make this easy on yourselves. Riley held her breath. The tunnel was so narrow that Kade effectively became a living barricade. Nothing could pass without going through him. But that also meant he was trapped, unable to maneuver, fighting at a massive disadvantage. The footsteps stopped. I know you're there, enforcer. Marcus said to bring the girl back alive. Didn't say anything about you. Come out now, and maybe I'll make it quick. Kade's voice was ice. You want her? You go through me. Your funeral. Riley heard the rush of movement, the impact of bodies colliding in the narrow space. Kade grunted, and she smelled blood, his blood. Panic surged through her. Riley, run. Kade's shout echoed off stone. She should have listened. Should have kept moving, trusted him to handle it, followed his orders like she'd promised. Instead, Riley turned back. She couldn't see them in the darkness, but she didn't need to. She could hear the fight, flesh hitting stone, labored breathing, Kade fighting someone in a space where his size and strength were negated by the cramped quarters. She fumbled for her pack, hands closing on the emergency flare Kade had made her bring. Riley pulled the tab. Brilliant red light exploded through the tunnel, blinding after the complete darkness. She saw Kade pinned against the wall, his attacker. A scarred male she didn't recognize, pressing a knife toward his throat. Both men flinched from the sudden light. Riley didn't think. She just moved. She launched herself at the scarred male, flare in hand, jamming the burning end against his neck. He screamed, jerking back, giving Kade the split-second opening he needed. Kade's knife flashed, finding the attacker's side. The male went down hard, clutching the wound. I said run. Kade grabbed Riley's arm, pulling her past the injured wolf. And I said I wasn't leaving you. Riley kept hold of the flare, using it to light their way as they scrambled deeper into the tunnel system. Behind them, the wounded male was calling for backup, his voice echoing through the caves. Stubborn woman, Kade muttered, but there was something like pride in his voice. Stubborn mate, Riley shot back. They emerged into another chamber, this one smaller, with a single exit on the far side. Kade pulled Riley to a stop, breathing hard, checking her over with frantic hands. Are you hurt? My ankle. Nothing else. Riley examined him in the flare's dying light. Blood stained his shoulder. His jaw was already bruising. I'll live. Kade grabbed the medical pack from her shoulders, pulling out gauze and tape. Wrap your ankle. Quick. We've got maybe 5 minutes before more of them flood these tunnels. Riley worked fast, her healer training making the task automatic despite her shaking hands. Kade kept watch on both tunnel entrances, his knife ready, his body positioned between her and any threat. I can't believe you came back, he said quietly. I couldn't leave you. You could have. Should have. No. Riley finished wrapping her ankle, testing her weight. Better. Not perfect, but manageable. We're in this together now, Kade. For better or worse. I'm not running without you. He looked at her like she'd given him something precious. Together then. Together. Voices echoed through the cave system. Multiple voices, spreading out, systematically searching. Riley and Kade exchanged glances. The exit tunnel, Kade said. It's our only option. We have to hope it leads somewhere useful. They moved into the narrow passage, Riley's flare providing just enough light to navigate by. The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing colder, damper. Riley could hear water somewhere below, an underground stream maybe. Kade. Marcus's voice boomed through the caves, amplified by the stone. I know you can hear me. I'm impressed. You've led us on quite the chase. But it ends here. There's nowhere left to run. Send out the girl, and I'll let you live. My quarrel isn't with you. Like hell, Kade muttered. He called back, voice echoing. Your quarrel is with the Alpha. Riley's just doing her duty as a witness. Her duty is to die quietly, so the rest of us can maintain order. Marcus's facade of civility cracked. She saw something she shouldn't have. That's her mistake, and she'll pay for it. You don't have to. Last chance, Blackthorn. Walk away. Never. Then you'll die with her. Fitting, I suppose. Star-crossed mates, together until the end. Marcus's laugh was ugly. Such a waste of good enforcer talent. Riley's fingers tightened on Kade's. How does he know about the bond? He's been watching. Probably for years, waiting for something to use against me. Kade's voice was grim. Doesn't matter. All that matters is keeping you alive and getting you back to Kane. The tunnel opened abruptly into a cavern so large the flare's light couldn't reach the far walls. An underground lake stretched before them, black water reflecting red light like blood. Across the lake, barely visible, another tunnel entrance beckoned. Can you swim? Kade asked. Yes, but that water. Riley touched it, jerked her hand back. It's freezing. Literally. We'd have hypothermia in minutes. Then we make it fast. Kade was already stripping off his heavier coat, securing their packs to make them more waterproof. We swim hard, we swim fast, we get across and into that tunnel before they catch up. This is insane. This is survival. He cupped her face, his touch gentle despite their circumstances. Trust me. One more time. Riley looked into his eyes and saw absolute determination. He would get her across that lake or die trying. And honestly, she'd do the same for him. Together, she said. Together. They hit the water side by side. The cold was a physical shock, stealing Riley's breath, making her muscles seize. But Kade's hand found hers in the water, pulling her forward, and she kicked hard with her good leg, ignoring the pain in her ankle, focusing only on the opposite shore. Behind them, lights appeared, flashlights, multiple sources. Marcus's team had found the cavern. There, in the water. Cut them off. Gunshots cracked through the cave, bullets hissing into the water around them. Riley dove under, lungs burning, ears ringing. She felt Kade pull her deeper, away from the surface where they made easy targets. Her lungs screamed. Her limbs were going numb. Just when Riley thought she couldn't hold her breath a second longer, they broke the surface on the far side of the lake. Kade hauled her onto the rocky shore, both of them gasping and shaking. Move, he managed through chattering teeth. Into the tunnel. Now. They staggered into the passage as more bullets pinged off stone behind them. This tunnel was different, natural, winding with multiple branches. Kade pulled her into a side passage so narrow it was almost a crack in the rock, and they pressed themselves against the wall as pursuit thundered past. They don't know which way we went, Kade breathed against her ear. If we stay quiet. Footsteps returned. Stopped. Someone was searching the side passages. Riley's flare chose that moment to sputter and die, plunging them into darkness again. She felt Kade's arm come around her, pulling her tight against his chest, his heart hammering against her back. His other hand held his knife ready. A flashlight beam swept past their hiding spot once, twice. Paused. Check this one, a voice said. Footsteps approached their fissure. Kade shifted, preparing to fight. Riley could feel the tension in his body, the coiled violence ready to explode. If that wolf found them, Kade would kill him. But the noise would bring the others, and then, the footsteps stopped just outside their hiding spot. Riley held her breath, pressed so tight against Kade she could feel every muscle, every heartbeat. The flashlight beam probed the entrance of their fissure. Too narrow, the wolf decided. Nothing could fit in there. Keep moving. The footsteps retreated. Riley and Kade stayed frozen for long minutes after the sounds faded, hardly daring to breathe. Finally, Kade relaxed slightly. We can't stay here. They'll double back, search more thoroughly. Where do we go? Deeper. Always deeper. He found her hand in the darkness. We keep moving until we find another way out, or until Kane's team gets here. Whichever comes first. And if Marcus finds us first? Kade's voice was absolutely certain. He'll have to kill me to get to you. And Riley? I don't plan on dying today. Riley believed him. Against all odds, despite their impossible situation, she believed him. They disappeared deeper into the mountain. Two wolves bound together by choice and necessity, running from death and toward whatever future they could forge in the darkness. Together. Chapter 8. They'd been lost in the caves for hours. Riley had lost track of time in the absolute darkness. Without the flare, they'd been moving by touch alone, following the cave walls with careful hands, testing each step before committing their weight. Her ankles screamed with every movement. Her clothes were still damp from the lake, and even her werewolf healing couldn't fight off the bone-deep cold forever. "Talk to me," Kade said softly from just ahead. "Keep your mind active." "About what?" Riley's teeth chattered despite her best efforts to control them. "Anything. Your sister. Your favorite memory. Your plans for when we get out of here. When, not if. Always when. Never if." Kade stopped, and Riley bumped into his back. She felt him turn, his hands finding her shoulders in the dark. "I won't accept any other outcome. Neither should you." Riley leaned into his touch, drawing warmth and strength from his solid presence. "My favorite memory is from when Mara and I were kids. Before everything got complicated. We used to sneak out during full moons and race through the woods, just the two of us. She was faster, but I was more strategic. I'd ambush her from trees. Who usually won? Her. Always her." Riley smiled despite everything. But she'd pretend I'd given her a real challenge, would make this big show of declaring it a close race. She's good like that. Protective. "She's going to kill me when we get back," Kade said ruefully. "For letting you get into this mess. You didn't let me do anything. I was there because of my own choices." Riley squeezed his arms. "And you've kept me alive this far. That's more than anyone else could have done." A sound echoed through the cave system, distant but unmistakable. "Water. Running water. Come on." Kade took her hand, moving faster now with purpose. Underground stream means there's an outlet somewhere. Streams don't flow nowhere. They followed the sound, the roar of water growing louder with each step. The cave passage widened, and Riley noticed she could almost see her hand in front of her face. Light, dim gray, but definitely light, filtered in from somewhere ahead. "Kade," she breathed. "Is that daylight? Or near enough?" His voice was tight with cautious hope. "Careful. Could be a drop-off." They rounded a bend, and Riley gasped. The cave opened onto a ravine where an underground stream spilled out in a small waterfall before disappearing under ice-covered rocks below. More importantly, daylight, real beautiful daylight, poured through the opening. The storm had passed. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of pink and gold. "We're out," Riley said, hardly believing it. "We actually made it out." "Not out yet. We're exposed here." Kade assessed the ravine with tactical efficiency. "But it's a start. If we can climb down, follow the stream." Kane said his extraction team would be at the northern point. "Water flows north here." "How far?" "Based on our direction and distance traveled, maybe 3 miles. Through rough terrain. In twilight." Kade met her eyes. "Can you make it on that ankle?" Riley tested her weight. The wrap had held, and her shifter healing had done what it could. It hurt, but it was bearable. "I can make it. That's my girl." Kade's smile was quick and fierce. Then his expression shifted, going alert. "Do you hear that?" Riley strained her ears. Under the rush of water, she caught it, voices. Multiple voices, echoing through the cave system behind them. Marcus's team was still hunting. "They're following our trail," Kade said grimly. "We need to move. Now." The climb down the ravine was treacherous. Loose rocks, ice-slick surfaces. Riley's ankles screaming with each jarring step. But Kade was there at every moment, steadying her, finding the safest path, his hands always ready to catch her if she slipped. They hit the ravine floor, just as the first wolf emerged from the cave mouth above. "There!" The shout echoed off stone walls. "In the ravine. Cut them off." Kade grabbed Riley's hand and ran. They splashed through the shallow stream, following its serpentine path through the ravine. Behind them, wolves were descending, fast, agile, uninjured, gaining ground with every second. "We're not going to make it," Riley gasped. "Kade, they're too fast." "Then we don't run." Kade pulled her around a bend where the ravine narrowed to a bottleneck, barely wide enough for one wolf at a time. "We fight." "Are you insane? There are 5 of them. But they have to come through here single file." Kade positioned himself at the narrowest point, pulling his remaining knife and a short blade from his boot. I hold here. You keep going. When you see Kane's team. No. Riley planted herself next to him. We're done with the noble sacrifice routine. I'm not leaving you. Riley. I said no. She grabbed a heavy branch from the stream edge, testing its weight. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. We fight together or we die together. Those are the only two options. Kade looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp and accepting. Together then. But stay behind me. Use that healer brain. Watch for openings, strike when they're distracted. The first wolf rounded the bend. The scarred male from the tunnel, now moving with a pronounced limp from Kade's earlier knife work. His eyes widened when he saw them waiting. Should have kept running, he snarled. Should have stayed loyal to your alpha, Kade countered. Too late now. The male charged. In the narrow confines, Kade met him head-on, their bodies colliding with brutal force. Riley watched with her healer's eye, seeing the tactical brilliance of Kade's choice. The bottleneck negated their numbers advantage. Marcus's wolves couldn't swarm them, couldn't use coordinated attacks. It had to be one-on-one. And one-on-one, Kade Blackthorn was a force of nature. He moved with controlled violence, every strike purposeful. The scarred male went down hard, clutching a new wound in his thigh. The second attacker tried to leap over his fallen comrade, and Riley swung her branch into his knees. He crashed into the stream with a satisfying splash. Nice hit. Kade kicked the downed wolf's head, ensuring he stayed down, then reset his position. 2 down. 3 to go. But the next 3 came together, trying to force their way through the bottleneck simultaneously. Kade met them with savage efficiency, his knives flashing. Blood stained the water. Bodies pressed together in the narrow space, creating a brutal scrum where technique mattered less than sheer determination. Riley saw one wolf break past Kade's guard, heading straight for her. She brought the branch up, jabbing at his eyes. He caught it, yanked, and Riley went stumbling forward, directly into Kade's elbow as he spun to protect her. The impact sent her sprawling into the stream. Riley. Kade's momentary distraction cost him. A wolf got inside his guard, claws raking across his ribs. Kade grunted but didn't go down, reversing his blade and driving it into the attacker's shoulder. Riley pushed to her feet dizzy, her injured ankle finally giving out. She couldn't stand, couldn't fight, could only watch as Kade tried to hold back 3 wolves single-handedly, his movements slowing as blood loss took its toll. They were going to die here. All her choices, all her trust, all her hope. It was going to end in a frozen ravine with the sun setting and Marcus's wolves tearing them apart. Then she heard it. Howls. Multiple howls coming from downstream. Not the hunting calls of Marcus's pack, but the coordinated battle cry of Shadowpine warriors. Kane's extraction team. The wolves attacking Kade heard it too. They hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Kade didn't hesitate. He pressed his advantage, driving them back with renewed ferocity. That's our alpha, Kade roared. That's our pack, and you're about to find out what happens to traitors. The lead wolf, a massive brown male Riley didn't recognize, made a split-second decision. Fall back. Regroup with Marcus. They ran, leaving their injured comrades behind, disappearing back up the ravine toward the cave. Kade stood for a moment, breathing hard, bleeding from multiple wounds. Then his knees buckled. Kade. Riley crawled to him through the stream, her healer instincts overriding everything else. Don't you dare die on me. Not now. Not after everything. Not dying, he managed, his smile weak. Just resting my eyes for a second. Like hell you are. Riley pressed her hands against his worst wound, the claw marks across his ribs, channeling what little healing energy she had left. It wasn't much, but it was enough to slow the bleeding. Stay with me. Kane's team is almost here. You hear those howls? That's rescue, Kade. We made it. We. His hand found hers, gripping tight despite his obvious pain. Pretty sure you made me fight instead of following sensible orders. Someone had to save your stupidly noble ass. Riley laughed, and it came out half-sob. Besides, I told you. Together or not at all. Best, worst decision I ever made, Kade murmured. Accepting this assignment. Meeting you. Falling. Don't. Riley cut him off, her throat tight. Don't say it like a goodbye. Say it like a promise. Riley Morrison. Kade's gray eyes found hers, lucid and intense despite his injuries. I love you. That's not goodbye. That's forever. The howls were close now, almost on top of them. Riley could hear voices, footsteps, the organized chaos of enforcers mobilizing. But all she could see was Kade, bleeding in the stream, still trying to protect her even as his strength failed. "I love you too," she whispered. "So you have to live. Understand? That's an order from your mate." Kade's smile was brilliant despite everything. "Yes, ma'am." Then Kane Thorne himself came around the bend at a dead run, 6 enforcers at his back, and Riley had never been so happy to see her alpha's scarred, intimidating face. "Kade!" Kane splashed through the stream, dropping to his knees beside his fallen enforcer. "Report. Target secured," Kade managed. "Riley's safe. Marcus's team scattered. 3 down, 3 retreated. We'll handle Marcus." Kane's hand was surprisingly gentle as he assessed Kade's wounds. "Riley, can you travel?" "I can travel." Riley refused to let go of Kade's hand. "But he needs medical attention. Now, we've got a medic with the team. Tyler." Kane gestured, and a young male rushed forward with a full medical kit. "Stabilize him for transport. We've got choppers waiting at the extraction point 2 miles north." "I can walk," Kade protested, trying to sit up. "You can shut up and let us carry you," Kane countered with the authority of an alpha who would not be argued with. "You've done your duty, enforcer. Let us do ours." Riley watched as Kane's team worked with military efficiency, stabilizing Kade, treating her ankle, preparing them both for transport. Through it all, Kade never let go of her hand, and she never let go of his. They'd survived. Against impossible odds, against trained killers, against cold and darkness and their own fears, they'd survived. Together. As the enforcers lifted Kade onto a makeshift stretcher and Kane helped Riley to her feet, the alpha leaned close and said quietly, "He's never once disobeyed a direct order to retreat. You must be something special, healer." Riley looked at Kade, battered, bleeding, still managing to smile at her like she was the only thing that mattered in the world. "He's the special one," she said softly. "I'm just the wolf who finally figured out he was worth the risk." Kane's expression softened, just a fraction. "Then welcome to the pack, Riley Morrison. Officially. Because any wolf who fights that hard for my enforcer is family." They moved out as the sun set fully, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Behind them, the ravine where they'd made their stand was already disappearing into shadow. But ahead, illuminated by the last rays of daylight, Riley could see their future. Together. Always together. And this time, that was a promise, not a fear. Chapter 9. The pack infirmary smelled like antiseptic and hope. Riley sat beside Kade's bed in the private recovery room, holding his hand while he slept off the sedatives the medical staff had given him. They'd airlifted him out of the mountains straight to the pack hospital, where Dr. Chun, Riley's mentor and the head healer, had spent 4 hours patching him back together. "He'll be fine," Dr. Chun had assured her after the surgery. Shifter healing and stubbornness are a powerful combination. Give him a few days, he'll be back to intimidating suspects and doing whatever it is enforcers do. That had been 6 hours ago. Riley hadn't left his side since. "You should rest too," a familiar voice said from the doorway. Mara stood there, her auburn hair, so like Riley's, pulled back in a messy bun, her green eyes full of relief and sisterly concern. "You look like death warmed over." "Gee, thanks." But Riley couldn't keep the smile off her face as Mara crossed the room and enveloped her in a crushing hug. "I missed you too." "Missed me? You nearly got yourself killed." Mara pulled back, hands on Riley's shoulders, eyes scanning for injuries. "Ankle wrapped, face bruised, hypothermia, exhaustion." "Riley, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking that letting Marcus Crane kill the only witness to his crimes would be bad for pack justice." Riley squeezed her sister's hands. "And that Kade Blackthorn is worth fighting for." Mara glanced at the sleeping enforcer, then back at Riley with a knowing expression. "So you finally stopped running from the mate bond." "I stopped running from a lot of things." Riley looked at Kade, his face peaceful in sleep despite the bandages. "Turns out, not all mates are like Derek. Some are worth the risk. I could have told you that 2 years ago. I wouldn't have believed you 2 years ago." Riley stood, stretching her stiff muscles. "How bad is it out there?" "With Marcus?" Mara's expression darkened. "Kane's got every enforcer in the territory hunting him. They caught 3 of his team at the cave system. The ones you and Kade left behind. They're talking, giving up names. Turns out Marcus has been building a power base for years, planning to challenge Kane for alpha position." And I witnessed him killing someone who might have supported him in that challenge. Exactly. You didn't just see a murder, Riley. You saw the opening move in a coup attempt. Mara pulled a chair closer, sitting. Kane wants your official testimony as soon as you're able. He's calling a packed council, exposing everyone involved. I'll testify. Riley's voice was steady. I'm done being afraid. A rough voice interrupted. Damn right you are. Both sisters turned to find Kade awake, his gray eyes alert despite the heavy pain medication. You're supposed to be resting, Riley scolded, moving back to his bedside. I've been resting for 6 hours. I'm bored. Kade's smile was lopsided from the drugs. Hi, Mara. Sorry for getting your sister nearly killed. In my defense, she refused to follow sensible orders. Mara's laugh was surprised and genuine. Oh, I like him. Riley, keep this one. Planning on it, Riley said softly, and Kade's hand tightened around hers. I'm going to give you two some privacy. Mara stood, pointing at Riley. But you need to eat, sleep, and actually let the medical staff check you properly. Doctor's orders. My orders. Since when are you a doctor? Since I spent the last 6 hours worrying myself sick about you and earned the right to boss you around. Mara leaned down to press a kiss to Riley's forehead. I'm glad you're safe. Both of you. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Riley turned back to find Kade watching her with an expression that made her chest tight. What? She asked. You're beautiful, he said simply. Even covered in bruises and wearing hospital scrubs that are 3 sizes too big. That's the pain medication talking. That's the truth talking. The medication just makes me brave enough to say it out loud. Kade tried to sit up, winced, and Riley immediately moved to help adjust his pillows. We made it, Riley. We actually made it. You made it. You fought off 5 wolves and kept me alive. We kept each other alive. Kade caught her hand, pulling her closer until she was perched on the edge of his bed. You came back for me in that tunnel. You fought beside me in the ravine. You chose not to run, even when running was the smart choice. I chose you, Riley corrected. There's a difference. Best choice you ever made. Conceded much? Realistic. His smile was warm, genuine, full of the hope they'd found in that cabin. Riley Morrison, will you go on a date with me? Riley blinked. You're asking me out. Now, while you're hopped up on painkillers in a hospital bed. I'm asking you out because I promised you choice. Agency. The chance to decide what you want without pressure or proximity or danger forcing your hand. Kade's thumb traced circles on her palm. We survived the forced part. Now I want to court you properly. Dinner, movies, normal couple things. If you'll have me. Riley's throat tightened with emotion. Here was Kade, injured and exhausted, still thinking about her comfort and consent. Still giving her the power to choose. Yes, she said. I'll go on a date with you. 100 dates. As many as you want. I want all of them. Kade pulled her down gently until her forehead rested against his. Every date, every moment, every choice. I want to earn them all. You already have. Riley closed the distance and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. You earned them the moment you put my safety above your duty. The moment you gave me space when I needed it and stayed close when I asked. The moment you proved that love doesn't have to hurt. Riley. Her name was a prayer on his lips. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Every single day. I believe you. And she did. Completely. The fear that had haunted her for 7 years was finally, truly fading. I love you, Kade Blackthorn. I love you too. He kissed her again, deeper this time, until a nurse clearing her throat from the doorway made them break apart. Sorry to interrupt, the nurse said with an amused smile. But visiting hours are over, and Enforcer Blackthorn needs his rest. You can come back tomorrow, Miss Morrison. Riley started to protest, but Kade squeezed her hand. Go. Sleep. Eat actual food. Let your sister fuss over you. I'll be here when you come back. Promise. Always. His smile was steady, certain. I'm not going anywhere without you, Riley. Not anymore. Riley kissed him one more time, chaste, gentle, a promise for tomorrow, and reluctantly left the room. Mara was waiting in the hallway, ready to bundle her home. As they walked through the quiet hospital corridors, Mara asked, So, is he everything you hoped for? Riley thought about Kade's steadfast protection, his patient understanding, his willingness to fight and bleed and die to keep her safe. Thought about poetry he wrote in secret and terrible cooking, and the way he'd held her through nightmares without expecting anything in return. He's better, Riley said softly. He's so much better than I ever imagined possible. Good. Mara wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Then let's get you healed up, so you can start building that life with him. The one you deserve. Riley leaned into her sister's embrace and thought about the cabin where they'd weathered storms together. About ravines and caves and desperate fights. About darkness giving way to light. About finding love in the last place she'd expected. With the wolf she'd spent 2 years running from. And she smiled because for the first time in 7 years, the future didn't look terrifying. It looked beautiful. Chapter 10. The pack council chamber was packed. Riley stood in the center of the ceremonial circle, acutely aware of dozens of eyes watching her every move. Alpha Kane sat in the high seat, his scarred face impassive. To his right, the remaining council members, those not implicated in Marcus's conspiracy, waited with barely concealed anticipation. And in the front row, still bandaged but refusing to miss this moment, Kade watched her with steady gray eyes full of pride and support. She could do this. She'd survived Marcus's hunters. She could survive testimony. Riley Morrison. Kane's voice carried authority that demanded attention. You stand before this council to give testimony regarding the events of October 15th. Do you swear to speak truth, as witnessed by your wolf and recognized by your pack? I do. Riley's voice was steady. Good. She'd practiced this in the mirror for the past week, preparing for this moment. Then tell us what you saw. Riley took a breath and began. She detailed everything. Working late at the clinic, hearing sounds from the storage room, finding Marcus Crane standing over Thomas Pike's body. The young wolf's dead eyes. Marcus's cold expression as he'd realized he had a witness. He told me accidents happen in storage rooms, Riley said, her voice hardening. That Thomas had been clumsy. But I'm a healer. I know the difference between accidental death and strangulation. I saw the bruising on Thomas's throat, saw Marcus's claws still extended, still bloody. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Kane raised a hand for silence. And what did you do? I ran. Riley met Kane's eyes. I ran straight to your office and reported what I'd seen. You immediately called for Marcus's arrest, which is when he fled, and began a coordinated effort to silence you before trial. Kane's expression was carved from stone. An effort that included conspiracy, attempted murder, and betrayal of pack bonds. Tell us about the safehouse. Riley detailed their time in the cabin. Marcus's escape, the blizzard, the hunt through the caves. She kept her testimony clinical, factual, even as memories of cold water and desperate fights threatened to overwhelm her. Through it all, she felt Kade's presence like an anchor. Enforcer Blackthorn protected you throughout, Kane stated. At significant personal risk. He saved my life. Multiple times. Riley glanced at Kade, saw his slight nod of encouragement. But more than that, he gave me the courage to come forward. To not let fear of Marcus keep me silent. And you're certain of what you saw? Certain that Marcus Crane murdered Thomas Pike in cold blood. Absolutely certain. Riley's voice rang clear. I saw him do it. And I'll testify to that truth no matter how many wolves Marcus sends after me. Kane leaned forward. You won't have to worry about that, healer. We have Marcus Crane in custody. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Riley's eyes widened. You caught him. This morning. He was trying to flee pack territory through the northern border. My enforcers were waiting. Kane's smile was sharp and satisfied. He's currently in holding, awaiting judgment. Your testimony will help ensure that judgment is final. Relief flooded through Riley so intensely her knees went weak. It was over. Really, truly over. Marcus couldn't hurt her anymore. Kane stood, his presence commanding immediate silence. Let it be known that this council finds the testimony of Riley Morrison credible, detailed, and corroborated by evidence gathered during Marcus Crane's flight. He will face judgment for murder, conspiracy, attempted murder of a pack member, and treason against his alpha. What's the sentence for that? Someone called from the gallery. Death, Kane said flatly. Or exile, if he's very lucky. The choice will be his. A clean death with honor, or banishment as a rogue with his name stripped from pack history. What about his allies? Another voice asked. They'll face their own judgments. Some will be exiled. Others will serve the pack in penance, labor, reparations to victims' families. Kane's eyes swept the chamber. But let this be clear, conspiracy against this pack, against our laws, will not be tolerated. We are Shadowpine. We are strong because we are united. Anyone who threatens that unity will answer for it. The chamber erupted in howls of agreement. Riley felt her wolf surge in response. Pack bonds affirming, strengthening, welcoming her as a true member who'd stood firm against threats. Kane raised his hand again. Riley Morrison, you came to us 3 years ago as a nomad seeking sanctuary. Today, you've proven yourself as one of our most valuable members. Not just as a healer, but as a wolf of courage and integrity. This pack is honored to call you ours. Thank you, Alpha. Riley's voice cracked slightly. This pack gave me a home when I needed one. I'm honored to protect it. You've done more than protect it. You've strengthened it. Kane's gaze shifted to Kade. Enforcer Blackthorn. Stand. Kade rose, moving to stand beside Riley. His hand found hers, fingers lacing together in front of the entire pack. You followed your duty admirably, Kane said. Kept our witness safe under impossible circumstances. More than that, you proved why I chose you as head enforcer when your father fell. You have his courage, his honor, his unwavering commitment to pack welfare. Kade bowed his head. I only did my duty, Alpha. You did far more than duty required. And this pack recognizes that. Kane's expression softened just slightly, which is why I'm officially approving your mate bond request. If you both choose to complete the claiming, you have this pack's full support and blessing. Riley's breath caught. A public acknowledgement of their bond. Not forced, not required, but offered with full pack approval. She looked at Kade, saw hope and joy and infinite patience in his eyes. What do you say? Kade murmured. Ready to make this official? Not here, Riley said quickly, making the chamber laugh. Later, privately. But yes. Kade's smile was brilliant. He raised their joined hands for the pack to see, and the chamber erupted in howls and applause. The traditional celebration of a new mate bond being formed. Kane let the celebration continue for a moment before calling for order. This council is adjourned. The pack stands united, stronger for Riley's courage and Kade's protection. We hunt tonight under the full moon, together as we should be. The formal session dissolved into excited chatter as wolves moved to congratulate Riley and Kade. Mara was the first to reach them, pulling Riley into a crushing hug. You did it, Mara whispered fiercely. I'm so proud of you. We did it, Riley corrected, pulling back to look at her sister. You kept me sane, believed in me. I couldn't have done this without you. That's what family does. Mara grinned and turned to Kade. And you, thank you for keeping her alive and finally breaking through her stubborn walls. Trust me, the walls were well earned, Kade said diplomatically. I'm just grateful she gave me the chance to prove they weren't needed anymore. Kane approached, dismissing the wolves who'd been trying to speak with him. Riley. A word. Riley nodded, and Kane led them to a quieter corner of the chamber. His scarred face was serious, but not unkind. What happens now, Kane said, is your choice. You can return to your work at the clinic, go about your life as normal. Or, he paused, I could use someone with your courage in a more official capacity. The pack could benefit from a head healer who understands politics as well as medicine. Riley blinked. You're offering me a promotion? I'm offering you influence. A voice in pack decisions. The head healer sits on the secondary council, advises on matters of pack health and welfare. Kane's expression was calculating. You've proven you can stand firm under pressure. That's valuable. Think about it. I will, Riley promised. Thank you, Alpha. Thank you, healer. Now go celebrate with your mate. You've earned it. Riley and Kade left the council chamber hand in hand, stepping out into crisp autumn evening. Other wolves streamed past, heading for the pack gathering grounds where the full moon celebration would take place. Head healer, Kade said with pride. That's a significant offer. It's terrifying, Riley admitted. More responsibility, more visibility, more opportunity to help people, to make real change. Kade pulled her close, right there in the open where anyone could see. You'd be amazing at it. You think so? I know so. He kissed her forehead. But the choice is yours always. Whether you take the position or stay as you are, I'm proud of you either way. Riley looked up at the rising moon, full and bright and beautiful. Looked at the wolves gathering, her pack, her community. Looked at Kade, steady and sure in hers. I want to do it, she decided. I want to help build something better. Make sure what happened to me, what Marcus tried, never happens to another pack member. Then you will. Kade's smile was warm. And I'll be right beside you. Always. Always, Riley echoed. That's a big promise, Enforcer. It's the only promise that matters, healer. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. So what do you say? Ready to finish what we started in that cabin? Riley knew what he was asking. The mate bond, full, complete, permanent. A claiming that would tie them together in ways that went beyond physical or emotional. A commitment that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. But when she looked at Kade, she didn't see Derek. Didn't see control or manipulation or cages. She saw partnership, saw choice, saw a future built on trust and earned through blood, sweat, and desperate fights in the darkness. Yes, Riley said. I'm ready. Are you? I've been ready since the moment I met you. Kade took her hand. Come on, let's go somewhere private. I have some poetry to share, and I need you to promise not to laugh. I'm definitely going to laugh. I know, but you'll love me anyway. Riley grinned, following him away from the gathering crowds toward the forest. Yeah, I really will. They disappeared into the trees together, two wolves bound by choice and strengthened by trials. Behind them, the pack celebrated under the full moon, united, stronger, complete. And ahead of them stretched a future full of possibility, built on foundations of trust, watered by shared tears and laughter, and rooted in love that had survived the ultimate test. Together. Always together. Just as they were meant to be. Chapter 11. Kade led Riley deep into pack territory, to a clearing she'd never seen before. Where are we? She asked, taking in the circle of ancient trees, the small stream that bubbled through moss-covered rocks, the way moonlight painted everything in shades of silver. My father's claiming site, where he and my mother completed their bond. Kade's voice was soft with memory. It's been in our family for generations. Blackthorns come here when they're ready to make promises that matter. Riley's breath caught. Kade, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together, really together, for a few weeks. He turned to face her fully, moonlight catching in his gray eyes. But Riley, I've been waiting 2 years for you to trust me. I don't want to wait anymore. Not if you're ready. Was she ready? Riley examined her heart, looking for the fear that had defined her for so long. Found only certainty instead. I'm ready, she said. But I need you to understand something first. What Derek did, how he used the bond, it damaged something in me. Some days I'm going to be difficult. Some days I'm going to panic for no reason. Some days I'm going to need reassurance that this is real, that you're not going to change. Then I'll give you that reassurance. Kade stepped closer, framing her face with both hands. Every day if you need it. Every hour. Every minute. Whatever it takes to prove that this, us, is built on something better than fear and control. What's it built on? Choice. Trust. The kind of love that survives blizzards and assassins and your terrible jokes about my cooking. His smile was tender. The kind of love worth fighting for. Riley laughed, and it came out half-sob. I love you. Gods, I love you so much it terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together. Kade's thumb brushed away the tear that escaped down her cheek. Let's build something beautiful out of all the broken pieces. Deal. Deal. The claiming was nothing like her first bond with Derek. That had been a public spectacle, full of pomp and forced ceremony and eyes watching her every move. This was private, sacred, theirs alone. Kade shifted first. A massive black wolf with gray-silver eyes that tracked her every movement. Riley followed, her smaller russet wolf emerging with joy at finally being able to properly greet her mate. They circled each other in the moonlight, wolves communicating in ways humans couldn't. Through scent and body language, and the invisible threads of the bond beginning to weave between them. When Kade's wolf pressed against hers, Riley felt it. Not the invasive push of Derek's bond, but an invitation. A door opening, asking permission to enter. She opened herself to it, let the bond settle into place like a key in a lock that had always been meant for it. Mine, Kade's wolf said through the bond. Not possessive. Reverent. Ours, Riley corrected. We're each other's. Perfect. They shifted back to human form together, standing in the moonlit clearing, and Riley felt the bond humming between them. Warm, golden, right. Nothing like the cold chains Derek had wrapped around her soul. This was light and air and freedom. How do you feel? Kade asked, watching her carefully for any sign of panic. Complete, Riley said, wondering at the truth of it. Like something I didn't know was missing finally clicked into place. Good. Kade pulled her close, skin to skin under the moon. Because I have plans for us, Riley Morrison Blackthorn. Morrison Blackthorn. Unless you prefer just Morrison? Or Blackthorn? He looked suddenly uncertain. I didn't ask. I should have asked. Riley kissed him to shut him up. Morrison Blackthorn is perfect. Now what are these plans? First, we finish claiming properly. His voice dropped, husky with desire. Then tomorrow, I'm taking you on that date I promised. And then we're going to build a life. You and me, the head healer and the head enforcer, making this pack stronger together. That's a good plan. Riley ran her hands up his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her palms. But first things first. The claiming kiss was everything their first kiss had promised and more. Passion and patience, desire and devotion, the physical manifestation of the bond singing between them. Kade lowered them both to the soft moss, his hands reverently mapping every scar, every curve, every inch of her like she was precious. And for the first time in 7 years, Riley felt precious. Not owned, not controlled, just cherished by someone who saw all of her. The broken parts, the strong parts, the scared parts, and loved them all equally. Tell me if it's too much, Kade murmured against her throat. Tell me if you need to stop. Don't you dare stop. Riley arched into his touch, trusting him completely. I want this. I want you. All of you. What followed was tender and fierce by turns. Kade patient when Riley needed reassurance, passionate when she demanded more, always attuned to her needs in a way Derek had never been. The bond amplified everything, letting them feel each other's pleasure, each other's love, each other's absolute certainty that this was right. When it was over, they lay tangled together under the moon, breathing hard, the bond between them fully formed and glowing warm in Riley's chest. Okay, Kade asked, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. Better than okay. Riley turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. I never thought I could have this again. Never thought I deserved it. You deserve everything. Kade's voice was fierce. And I'm going to spend the rest of our lives proving it to you. That's a long time, enforcer. Not nearly long enough, healer. He pulled her closer, and Riley felt safe in a way she hadn't since before Derek. Safe and cherished and home. They eventually dressed and made their way back toward Pack Lands, hand in hand, the bond humming contentedly between them. As they reached the edge of the clearing, Riley stopped. Thank you, she said. For waiting. For being patient. For proving that not all mate bonds are cages. Thank you for trusting me, Kade countered. For giving me the chance to prove it. For being brave enough to try again. So what now? Now we go back to the celebration. Let the pack welcome our bonded status with the traditional embarrassing rituals. And probably get extremely drunk on ceremonial wine. Kade grinned. Tomorrow we deal with the reality of being a bonded couple in pack leadership. But tonight we just celebrate. I like that plan. Riley let him pull her into one more kiss. Lead the way, mate. Always, mate. They emerged from the forest to find the pack celebration in full swing. The moment they appeared, hand in hand with the unmistakable glow of newly bonded mates, a cheer went up. Wolves crowded around them, offering congratulations and well wishes and yes, copious amounts of ceremonial wine. Mara hugged them both, crying happy tears. Finally, I thought I'd have to lock you two in a closet to make this happen. The cabin was basically a closet, Riley pointed out. So technically, please don't give Kane ideas about future team-building exercises, Kade groaned. Kane himself approached, his scarred face creased in something that might have been a smile. Congratulations. May your bond be as strong as your courage. Thank you, Alpha, they said in unison, making the nearby wolves laugh. The celebration continued into the early morning hours. Music and dancing, and the kind of pack bonding that made Riley remember why she'd chosen to stay in Shadowpine 3 years ago. This was family. This was home. And now she had Kade beside her, his presence a constant comfort through the bond. Every time she felt overwhelmed, she'd feel his reassurance flowing through their connection. Every time someone got too close, he'd position himself as a subtle barrier without being obvious about it. He anticipated her needs without controlling them, protected without suffocating. You're thinking loudly, Kade murmured in her ear during a slow dance. Just marveling at how right this feels. Riley rested her head on his chest. How easy. Love should be easy. It's everything else that's hard. He spun her gently. But we'll figure out the hard stuff together. That's what mates do. Promise. Promise. As the moon began to set and the celebration wound down, Riley found herself standing at the edge of the gathering grounds with Kade, watching their pack family slowly disperse to their homes. Ready to start our life? Kade asked. Riley thought about everything they'd survived. Marcus's hunters, caves and cold water, fear and trauma and hard-won trust. Thought about the cabin where they'd learned each other's stories. About ravines where they'd fought side by side. About testimony given and justice served. Thought about a future full of possibility, built on foundations that couldn't be shaken because they'd already weathered the worst storms. "Ready," Riley said. "Let's go home, mate." "Our home," Kade corrected, his smile warm. "Together." "Together," Riley agreed. "Always together." And hand in hand, bound by choice and strengthened by trials, they walked toward their future. Two wolves who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build something bright. Chapter 12. 6 months later. Riley adjusted the wreath of winter berries on the clinic door and stepped back to admire her work. The healing center had expanded significantly since she'd accepted the head healer position. 2 new treatment rooms, an updated surgical suite, and a training area where she was teaching the next generation of pack healers. "It looks crooked," a familiar voice said behind her. "It's perfect," Riley countered, turning to kiss her mate. Kade stood in the doorway, still in his enforcer uniform, probably coming straight from whatever mission Kane had sent him on. "How was the border patrol?" "Quiet. Boring. Made me miss you." Kade pulled her close, and Riley felt the bond sing with contentment. 6 months, and it still felt new every time he touched her. Ready for tonight? Tonight. Their first official pack dinner as head healer and head enforcer. A political necessity that Kade was convinced Riley would hate. "Do we have to?" Riley groaned. "Can't we just tell Kane we got lost in the woods? We live here. We'd be terrible at getting lost in our own territory." Kade kissed her temple. "Besides, you promised Mara you'd introduce her to Kane's new second-in-command. Something about him being exactly her type? I said he was competent and didn't talk too much. That's not the same as her type. For Mara, that's basically a marriage proposal." Riley laughed, letting Kade steer her toward their home. A cabin on pack lands that they'd renovated together over the past few months. It was bigger than the safehouse, more comfortable, but still retained that intimate feeling of the place where they'd fallen in love. "Package came for you," Kade said as they entered. He gestured to a box on the kitchen counter. "From your old pack territory." Riley's stomach tightened. She hadn't had contact with anyone from her old pack since she'd left 7 years ago. "Did you check it?" "Yes. It's safe." Kade's hand found hers, offering silent support through the bond. "Want me to open it with you?" "Please." Inside the box, carefully wrapped, was a single notebook and a letter. Riley recognized the handwriting on the envelope immediately. "It's from Astrid," she breathed. "My mentor. Dear Riley, I hope this letter finds you well and happy. I've followed your progress in Shadowpine with great pride. Head healer, bonded mate to an honorable enforcer, survivor of assassination attempts. You've built exactly the life you deserved. I'm dying. Cancer, the humankind that even wolf healing can't touch. I have maybe 2 months left. I'm writing to thank you for being my greatest student and to give you something I've kept safe for 7 years. This notebook contains every spell, every technique, every secret about bond magic that I learned in my century of healing, including the spell I used to save you from Derek. I'm trusting you with this knowledge because I know you'll use it wisely, to help others escape abusive bonds, to teach the next generation, to ensure no wolf suffers what you suffered. Be happy, Riley. Love that mate of yours. Build something beautiful. With love and pride, Astrid." Riley's hands shook as she opened the notebook. Page after page of detailed notes, diagrams, spell work. Everything Astrid had known about the most guarded secrets of healer magic. "This is incredible," Riley whispered. "This knowledge, it could help so many wolves." "Then you'll use it." Kade wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You'll teach it, share it, make sure Astrid's legacy lives on. She's dying. Then we should visit her. Pay our respects. Let her see the wolf you've become." Kade pressed a kiss to her neck. "I'll talk to Kane, arrange leave. We'll go together." Riley turned in his arms, overwhelmed by gratitude and grief and love. "What did I do to deserve you? You survived. You trusted. You chose to love again despite every reason not to." Kade's smile was tender. "That's everything, Riley. That's more than deserving." They held each other in the quiet cabin, the bond warm and steady between them. After a moment, Riley pulled back, wiping her eyes. "We should get ready for this dinner. Can't let Kane down." "That's my girl." Kade kissed her forehead. "Go shower. I'll lay out your fancy healer robes." "I hate the fancy robes." "I know. but you look stunning in them, and I enjoy watching other wolves realize they can't have you. Possessive wolf. You're possessive wolf. Riley showered and dressed, letting Kade fuss over her appearance with an attention to detail that would have seemed ridiculous if it wasn't so sweet. When they finally headed to the Alpha's residence for dinner, she felt ready to face the political demands of pack leadership. The dinner was, as expected, full of posturing and politicking. But with Kade at her side, his hand occasionally finding hers under the table, his support steady through the bond, Riley navigated it all with confidence. During a quiet moment on the Alpha's terrace, Kane approached them. You two have become quite the team. The pack's thriving under your combined leadership, healing and security working in tandem. We learned from the best, Alpha, Kade said diplomatically. You learned from necessity and near-death experiences. Kane's expression turned serious. Which is why I wanted to ask, would you consider taking on apprentice enforcers? Training the next generation of leadership? Riley felt Kade's surprise through the bond. Alpha, I'm honored, but... No pressure. Think about it. Kane's gaze shifted to Riley. Both of you. The pack needs leaders who understand that strength isn't just physical, who know that surviving hardship makes you wiser, not weaker. You two embody that. After dinner, Riley and Kade walked home under the stars, hands linked, their bond humming with contentment. Did we just get volunteered to be mentors? Riley asked. I think we did. Kade pulled her close. What do you think? Want to mold young minds? Only if you promise to teach them that burning breakfast is not an acceptable enforcer skill. I've gotten better at cooking. You've gotten less actively dangerous at cooking. There's a difference. Riley laughed at his offended expression. But yes, I think we'd be good teachers. We've certainly learned enough hard lessons to pass on. We have. Kade stopped walking, turning to face her fully. The moonlight painted him in silver, highlighting the scars he'd gained protecting her, the strength in his stance, the love in his eyes. Riley Morrison Blackthorn. 6 months ago, I made promises in a clearing under this same moon. I want to make more promises now. What kind of promises? The forever kind. The we'll face whatever comes together kind. The I choose you every day for the rest of our lives kind. He pulled her close. The kind that say I will love you through easy times and hard times, through pack politics and personal struggles, through whatever the universe throws at us. Because you are my mate, my partner, my home. Riley felt tears prick her eyes. That's some serious poetry, enforcer. Have you been practicing? Maybe. His smile was sheepish. Is it working? It's working. Riley kissed him soft and sweet. And I make the same promises back to you. Forever, Kade. In every way that matters. Forever, he agreed. Together, they continued home, wrapped in each other and the certainty that they'd found something worth all the pain it took to get there. Behind them, the pack lands stretched peaceful and secure. Ahead, their cabin waited, warm, welcoming theirs. And between them, the mate bond glowed golden and unbreakable, built on trust and earned through fire. A testament to the truth that love wasn't about possession or control. It was about choice. It was about partnership. It was about two broken wolves choosing to heal together, building something beautiful from the pieces. It was about finding home in another person and knowing, absolutely, that home would never hurt you. Race you, Riley said suddenly, grinning up at her mate. You're on. Kade shifted into his wolf form, and Riley followed. They raced through the forest toward their cabin, two wolves running together, no longer running from anything, just running toward forever. Together. The end.